What's up everybody, Piscean here, and in this video I'm going to bring you 12 astrological autopsies, one for every ascendant. Alright, and I would really appreciate it if before we get started you subscribe, like, comment, and share if you dare and care. With peace and love. Skinny jeans suck. Anyways, alright. So, as you can see, the book title is The Nakshatra of No Return. And what we're going to do is go over, from Aries to Pisces, individual stories with people that have had the ascendant in the certain signs. So, for example, our prologue is the ephemeris of last resort, which we'll go over first. But also, we're going to talk about, for Aries, the man who forgot his rising sign and then forgot himself. The Venus return that returned nothing, Taurus. And, yeah. So, for example, we're going to go through an Aries who loses his memory and then loses the memory of losing his memory. A Taurus whose Venus return delivers a single wilted flower and a note that says, "Please stop." A Gemini twin who discovers the other twin was a hallucination caused by a faulty thermostat. A Cancer whose moon phases correspond exactly to the depreciation schedule of a 2003 sedan. A Leo whose solar eclipse occurs in a DMV waiting room. Number 666. So, this Aries ascendant. Well, the birth chart was a warranty card, and you'll see what I mean by that. So he was born on a Tuesday, first of all. The first mistake. Tuesdays are ruled by Mars, and Mars was his ascendant lord, and his ascendant was Aries. And Aries is a sign of the head, and his head was where the problem would begin. But he didn't know that yet. He knew only that his mother had saved his birth certificate in a shoebox under the bed, and the shoebox smelled of mothballs, and the mothballs smelled of forgetting. His birth chart was calculated by a woman in Sedona who charged $147 and used a software program that had not been updated since 2004. She printed it on parchment paper that was actually just beige cardstock. She said, "You have Aries rising. Your ascendant is the mask you wear. You wear the mask of the warrior." He liked that. He went home and looked up Aries rising on a website that also sold zodiac-themed candles. The website said, "Aries rising individuals are bold, impulsive, and natural leaders." He felt bold. He felt impulsive. He felt like a natural leader. He did not feel like a man who would one day forget his own face. But the forgetting was already there, hiding in the 12th house, which is the house of loss, and his 12th house was ruled by Pisces. And Pisces is the sign of the drowning. He was drowning in the idea of who he was supposed to be. The mask was not a mask. The mask was a muzzle. All right? Hold on one second. Okay. Let's talk about the first transit. All right, Saturn returns to the scene of the crime. So he turned 29. All right, we're still on this Aries ascendant, by the way, not a different case study. Not yet. We're not on to Taurus yet. So the Aries ascendant turned 29. Okay, Saturn returned to its natal position, which for him was in the 8th house of sudden endings. The 8th house is ruled by Scorpio, and Scorpio is a sign of the sting. All right, he was stung by a memory he could not locate. He began to forget small things like his keys, his phone, the name of the coffee shop he had visited every morning for 3 years. He told himself it was stress. He told himself it was the pandemic. He told himself it was the 5G towers. You know what? He told himself many things. The things he told himself were also forgotten. His wife being a Taurus rising with a Scorpio moon, which meant she remembered everything, especially his mistakes, said, "You left the stove on again." He said, "I don't remember turning it on." She said, "That's the problem." Saturn was in Aquarius at the time, which is the sign of the stranger. He was becoming a stranger to himself. The stranger had his face, but not his memories. The stranger looked in the mirror and saw a man who owed him money. Let's talk about the nakshatra of the severed head. So in Vedic astrology, the nakshatras are the 27 lunar mansions. So each is a story. Each is a warning. His ascendant fell in Ashwini, the nakshatra of the horseman, the star of speed and healing. Ashwini is ruled by the Ashwini Kumaras, the twin horsemen who are also physicians. They heal with speed. They also heal with forgetting. He went to a doctor. The doctor said, "You have early onset Alzheimer's." The doctor said, "There is no cure." The doctor said, "Do you have any questions?" He had one question: "Who am I?" The doctor laughed because he thought it was a joke. It was not a joke. It was the only honest question he had ever asked. Let's talk about the transit of Rahu through the first house, all right? And what happens? Well, first of all, Rahu is the north node, the head without a body. It is the shadow planet of obsession, illusion, and the things we chase but never catch. In his 48th year, Rahu transited his first house, which is the house of the self, the body, the ascendant. Rahu sat on his Aries rising like a second head, a phantom limb of identity. He began to forget his name. First his middle name, then his last name, then his first name became a sound he recognized but could not claim. He kept a notebook. The notebook said, "Your name is David. You were born in 1978. You have a wife named Laura. You are afraid of heights." He read the notebook every morning. By noon, the notebook was a foreign text. By evening, he was reading it backward, hoping the reverse would make more sense. His wife stopped calling him David. She called him honey and sweetheart and the man who used to know how to use the remote. He accepted these names because they were shorter than the silence. Well, we're going to talk about the Ketu conjunction. The severed head meets the severed self. So what is Ketu? Ketu is the south node, all right? The body without a head. It is a shadow planet of detachment, liberation, and the things we lose because we were never meant to hold them, all right? So when Rahu transited his first house, remember, when we're talking about Rahu and Ketu, we're talking about the node's axes, okay? So the first house and the seventh house come together. For me, like the sixth house and the 12th house axes. So, Ketu transited his seventh house of relationships, the house of the other, all right? His wife became a stranger. His marriage became a document he could not sign. Ketu in his seventh house meant that he would lose his partner not through death, but through a slow, polite erosion. She stopped arguing. She stopped reminding. She stopped leaving notes on the fridge. She simply became a piece of furniture that occasionally made dinner, and he did not even notice the difference. So one day she said, "I'm leaving." He said, "Leaving for what?" She said, "Leaving you." He said, "I don't remember having you." She cried. He watched her cry the way you watch a weather report for a city you have never visited. All right. Now let's talk about Jupiter's aspect on an empty house. What happens when Jupiter aspects an empty house in astrology? We're talking about things here that are very important to know if you want to really excel in astrology. And I'm doing this in a way so it's fun for you to learn it. I'm not going to sit here and well, I've done it before actually. I've done over 800 videos. So I can't even recall every single video I've done on this channel, but I know I've done a lot tailored towards astrology. So Jupiter's aspect on an empty house. Well, sorry, the fucking garbage guys here outside of my apartment. That's what that is. And I live in the city of St. Paul, which is blah. Blah, 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 blah. Jupiter transited his ninth house of fortune and philosophy 2 years later, all right? We know that Jupiter is the greater benefic and Venus is the lesser benefic, okay? The planet of expansion and wisdom, Jupiter. But wisdom is not comfort, okay? Why? Because wisdom is the ability to see that you are a stain on a shirt that was already being thrown away. Yes. He was living in a memory care facility by then. His room had a window that looked out onto a parking lot. He watched cars arrive and depart. He did not know his own car. He did not know that he had ever even owned a car. He did not know that he had ever owned anything. Isn't that so scary? A nurse, a Pisces rising with a Capricorn moon, which meant she was both compassionate and exhausted, of course, brought him a copy of his birth chart. She had found it in the shoebox, and she said, "This is yours." He looked at the chart. He saw circles and lines and symbols that meant nothing. He saw the word Aries and felt a faint pulse of recognition, like the echo of a scream from a building that had already been demolished. He saw his ascendant. He saw the mask. He tried to put it on, and the mask didn't fit. He said, "What is this?" "It's you," the nurse said. "I don't remember me," he said. "Well, that's okay," she said. "The stars don't remember you either." Now, that's pretty fucked up to say to somebody that you know is going to forget it in a moment's second. Now I want to talk about the ephemeris of no return. So he died on a Tuesday, which was appropriate. Tuesdays are ruled by Mars, and Mars is the warrior, and he had fought a long war against forgetting. He lost. The losing was not tragic. It was just the final transit, okay? In his obituary said, "He is survived by his wife Flora and a collection of unread horoscopes. His birth chart was buried with him, folded into a square, placed it inside his shirt pocket. The pocket was over his heart. The heart had stopped, and the chart had not." In the cemetery, a groundskeeper, a Capricorn rising with a Sagittarius moon, which meant he believed in nothing but was polite about it, noticed that the grave was exactly aligned with the rising of Ashwini Nakshatra on that morning. He did not mention this to anyone. He did not believe in astrology. He believed in dirt. Dirt is the only honest element. Dirt does not need an ascendant. So here's the moral here. There is no moral. This story is not a lesson. It is a transit report. The man who forgot his rising sign was you, is you, will be you. You are already forgetting. You forgot the name of your third grade teacher. You forgot the smell of your grandmother's kitchen. You forgot the face of the person you were before you learned to lie. Your ascendant is not a mask. It is a post-it note stuck to a forehead that is already a skull. The glue is drying. The note is falling. You should read it before it lands. The note says you are here. Now you are not. The here was a typo. Now, I thought I expanded more of these. Hold on, actually. I think I put these in a different tab. So tab 52. Okay. I think this is what I wanted to show. We'll show this next. So, this is the woman who was born under a stationary Saturn. Meaning, specifically, Saturn was retrograde in Aquarius. Alright? Which is Shatabishk Nakshatra. 4:17 a.m. and her mother screamed exactly 3 times. So she never learned to cry. First of all, not because she couldn't, but her tear ducts work perfectly. As documented in 3 separate ophthalmological exams. She kept in a folder labeled evidence of failure, but because crying requires a belief that the tears will change something. She had no such belief. She was born under a stationary Saturn. The planet had stopped moving 2 hours before her first breath, as if it were waiting for her to arrive so it could hand her a bill. Now this nakshatra, specifically Shatabishak, means 100 healers. In her case, the healers were all on strike, or dead, or they had looked at her chart and quietly refunded her mother's deposit. Now her first memory, standing in a hallway at age 4, staring at a light switch. She wanted to turn it off, but she knew she could, right? But what else did she know? She knew that the light, once it was off, would not be gone. It would just be waiting in the wires, accumulating interest. She left the light on, and she has left every light on since. The electricity bill is her only inheritance. So, and it's funny, I actually got inspired to write this story based off the fact that here in Minnesota, we see people that keep their Christmas lights up damn near until February or even March. We still see people with their bright ass lights outside their house. And I've questioned, like, what provokes people in their chart? And they might have Saturn in Aquarius retrograde. Like, people have specific fucking natal signatures that make them the way that they are. And it's really fascinating that some people can't comprehend it. And they're still going to sit here and say, well, astrology is bullshit. You don't know anything. Fine. Help me help you. That's what I have to say to that. Because I use astrology as a tool to help me help you. Help me help myself. And if that's so bad, you need to check out why that's the case for you. So at 17, she asked an astrologer, why am I like this? The astrologer, a man with a breathing problem and a laminated copy of the Brihat Parasharahora Shastra, looked at her Saturn. He saw the retrograde motion, all right? He saw the placement in the 8th house for her rising sign, which was Cancer, the crab that carries its home on its back until the home drowns. He saw the conjunction with Rahu's shadow. He said, you were never meant to be born. Now, hear me out. Your birth was a paperwork error. Saturn is trying to correct it. She actually thanked him. She did not cry. She went home and sat in a chair that had belonged to her grandmother. The chair had a stain. The stain was shaped like a lung. She stared at it for 6 hours. Then she went to sleep. She dreamed of a filing cabinet. Every drawer was labeled reason. Every drawer was empty. The emptiness had a smell. The smell was her own breath. Now at 33, she still has her lingering Saturn return, which is retrograde still, because Saturn was still stationary, had been stationary for 3 decades, a cosmic typo. And she received a letter. No return address. The letter said, your Saturn will resume motion on the day you stop expecting anything. She framed the letter. The frame was made of melted credit cards. She hung it where the light switch used to be. And now she is still waiting. Because Saturn has not moved. She's not stopped expecting. But the expectation has grown so thin, so stretched over the years that it is now indistinguishable from a sigh. Alright? Now what I'll do is go over this quick astrological appendix, or AA. So for those born with Saturn stationary within 1 degree of a station, so 0 shadow days, the karma is not delayed. It is held. The planet does not teach, it just waits. The waiting is the lesson, okay? The lesson has no final exam because the exam was burned in a fire that hasn't happened yet. Alright? Mrigashira, or the deer that chased its own disappearance. Mrigashira is a deer's head, soft, searching, eternally hungry. Its ruling deity is Soma, the moon god of the elixir of immortality. But the deer never finds the elixir because it only finds more forest. Let's just say, there was once a deer that lived inside a man's chest. I know this sounds crazy. Hear me out. The man's name was Arjun, but he had not answered to that name in years. He answered to hay and to the sound of his own car alarm. The deer was small, no bigger than a fist, with antlers made of questions. Every question was a twig. Every twig led to a clearing. Every clearing was empty. Okay? So Arjun was born when Jupiter was transiting Mrigashira Nakshatra in Gemini, his 10th house of career. The astrologer told his mother he will search for something his whole life. He will never find it, but the searching will look like success to everyone who is not him. His mother nodded. She had been born under the same transit. She was still searching for a pair of earrings she lost in 1987. The earrings were in a drawer. She knew they were in a drawer, but she could not open a drawer because opening the drawer would end the search, and the search was the only thing keeping her alive, pretty much. So Arjun became a detective, not of crimes, of clues. He solved cases by finding the one detail everyone else missed. being a hair, a receipt, a single grain of sand that did not belong. He was famous. His face was on a billboard. The billboard was next to a highway that led to a town that had been abandoned in 1973. One night he was called to a crime scene. A woman had been found dead in her apartment. No wounds, no poison, no cause, just a note on the table. I found it. It was nothing. Arjun stared at the note. The deer in his chest stirred. It pointed its antlers at the word nothing. Arjun wrote in his notebook, nothing is not a motive. Nothing is a location. He drove home. He did not sleep. He searched his own apartment for something he could not name. He found a sock without a pair. He found a photograph of a man he did not recognize. He found a calendar from 2014 where every day was circled and read. The deer whispered, "You are not searching for the thing. You are searching for the search." Arjun stopped. He sat on his floor. He looked at his hands. His hands were empty. The emptiness was not a void. It was a mirror. In the mirror, he saw a deer with its head caught in a thicket of his own making. The thicket was made of all the cases he had solved, all right? All the clues he had found, all the grains of sand. The thicket was his career. The career was a cage. The cage was his chest. He did not cry. He did not cry because Mrigashira does not cry. It just runs. But there was nowhere left to run, so he stayed. He stayed for 3 days. And on the third day, the deer dissolved, not into nothing, into a single drop of water. The drop fell from his sternum to his stomach. It tasted like salt. It tasted like the earrings from 1987. It tasted like the word nothing. He opened the drawer. The earrings were there. He closed the drawer. He left the apartment. He never solved another case. He became a gardener. He grew only plants that do not flower. They are called ferns. Ferns do not search. Ferns just unfurl. They are satisfied with the shape that they already are. So, Mrigashira natives, Moon and Mrigashira, or significant planets, are doomed to chase what cannot be caught. And the remedy is not to stop chasing. Why? Because the remedy is to become the thing that does the chasing. And if that doesn't make sense, look, the deer's head is also a compass, right? So a compass that points only to the place you already are. That place is called enough, but you will never believe it. The not believing is also the deer, and the deer is also you. Okay? So, onto a new story here. And this is mainly about Vedic astrology, but you're gonna wanna learn Vedic astrology, because if you don't know it and you think that you're gonna live a life where you're gonna get so rich and wealthy easy and be able to manifest without it, good luck. Really. I'm not totally sure how some people believe that astrology is just something to be blown under the winds when we've been studying this for longer than we've even been here. Like, seriously. So, this is the astrologer who lost his Ayanamsha. Yes. Ayanamsha. Well, he had been calculating charts for 40 years. His Ayanamsha was Chitra Paksha, the same one used by the sages. He knew the exact precessional shift, being 24 degrees, 6 minutes, and 14 seconds as of his birthday, and he corrected every chart. He was precise, and he was proud, okay? One morning, he woke up and the stars had moved. Not physically. Physically, they were exactly where they had always been, but the calculation had changed, all right? Because his Ayanamsha was off by a single arc second. And that arc second was the difference between a life that meant something and a life that was a rounding error. He recalculated, still off. He used Lahiri. He used Raman. He used a spreadsheet he built himself in 1995. Nothing worked. The planets had drifted. Or he had. He could not tell which was worse. So he stopped taking clients. He sat in his office surrounded by printed ephemerides from 1983 to 2023. The papers yellowed. He yellowed, and one day a client knocked on his door. The client said, "I don't care about the Ayanamsha. Just read my chart." So the astrologer looked at the client, and he saw a human being made of the same uncertain particles as the drifting stars. He said, "Your Saturn is in the 7th house. You will marry someone who forgets your name. Your Jupiter is in the 9th house. You will travel to a country that no longer exists. Your Venus is combust. You will love exactly one person, and that person will be a mirror that shows you your own absence. The client nodded. That's what my last astrologer said. Then why did you come to me? Because I wanted to hear it from someone who had lost something. All right. The astrologer understood. He had lost his Ayanamsha. He had lost the illusion that precision matters. He had gained nothing except the ability to sit in a room with a stranger and say true things that changed nothing. He never recalculated again. He used a fixed zodiac from 499 CE. He told everyone that the precession was a myth. They believed him because his voice was steady. The voice was the only thing that had not drifted. He died in 2029. His last words, the Ayanamsha, was always a prayer. I was praying to a God who was bad at math.